I'm going to rant. I'm going to rant because this article was sent to me by 4 different people, and there's a larger point in that I'm going to get to after I read it and after we talk about why this article basically is crap. This article comes from Bloomberg. It says Sony slashes PlayStation VR. I'm sorry, that's the wrong article.
Dumb, stupid, or dumb, huh?
Let me start over. This article came from Bloomberg. Sony PSVR2 headset off to a slow start as metaverse push sputters. CEO Yoshida made metaverse a priority to drive Sony's growth. That is a lie. Virtual reality headset has not sparked any great excitement. Sony Group Core is projected to sell fewer than 300,000 PlayStation VR2 headsets in its first weeks on the market. A slow start for company efforts to take a leading role in the development of the metaverse. The Tokyo-based console maker is likely to sell about 270,000 units of the PSVR2 between its February 22 release and the end of March, according to estimates from the research firm IDC. Sony had a lofty goal of making about 2 million units for the PlayStation VR2's launch window, Bloomberg News reported last year. The headset is a foundational piece of Sony's strategy to build a metaverse where people can do far more than play video games, but the conceptual 3D virtual environments that prompted Mark Zuckerberg to rename his company Meta Platforms Incorporated have yet to repay the industry's heavy investments in hardware and software. Sony's president-in-chief and CEO Kenichiro Yoshida, hope I said that right, made the metaverse a growth tentpole for Sony, much like Meta has done. And the company's in-house game studios have been developing VR-tailored games to help the new headset get off to a fast start that hasn't materialized. Chief Financial Officer Hiroki Tataki said at a recent Morgan Stanley conference that Sony is reasonably confident about surpassing the roughly 5 million sales of the original PlayStation VR goggles over the course of the PSVR2's lifetime on the market. Matching the prior device's performance would not make the current one a success, given Meta's more accessible and affordable Quest has surpassed 20 million sales to date, according to a report this month. Meta has announced a price cut in its Quest 2 that will also impact sales of Sony's gadget. Words are very important here. It continues. The cool consumer reception to the PSVR2 is indicative of the wider challenge for metaverse purveyors, including Meta. Hype around metaverse offerings has petered out over the last year as tech firms have cut spending on projects that aren't immediately profitable, and support from the crypto sector has vanished as that industry reels from successive crises. Zuckerberg has said Meta will pull back on investments as part of a year of efficiency. This year, Walt Disney Corporation reportedly cut the division, developing its metaverse strategies as part of a broader restructuring. And the next article you can read is Meta says the metaverse is the future despite tech layoffs. All right, so let's break down why this article is crap. Number one, I emphasize the word metaverse because it is very clear that he was trying to push a point here. This writer, Takashi Mochizuki, wrote multiple different articles, or has written a previous article about basically being really negative about the finger quote metaverse. He's also the one who wrote the article I mentioned earlier about Sony cutting their first run production from 2 million down to 1.5. Sony sent out a rebuttal to that immediately. And let's break this down. Number one, Sony has never said at any point that they're trying to build a metaverse. To that point, and I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'll bring it up now. PlayStation Home / PlayStation Worlds, which was PSVR 1's equivalent of something like Horizon Worlds on Quest, was not included on this headset. And that was a big social space where you get together with digital avatars and kind of clown around and play mini games and stuff like that. That isn't on PSVR2. Sony's company line for PSVR2 from the beginning has been, this was built for and meant for virtual reality gaming. We are not interested in doing any social experiences. And if you go down the library, what's available on there right now, they don't have any social experience apps. You cannot find VR chat on PSVR2. You're not going to find Rec Room. I talked about PlayStation Worlds. That's not on there. There are no fitness apps on there. No like workout apps like Les Miles or anything like that. It currently does not work with PC, and you cannot use any body trackers with it. There's no, to my knowledge, there is no mod support available for it yet. There are no entertainment apps. You can't use YouTube on it. There is no support for 3D Blu-ray on it. Long story short, this was built for and meant for gaming. Sony has never said at any point we are trying to build a metaverse. That is our future. That's what we're trying to build on. If anything, Sony has been hedging their bets against this because they did not do a large production run. They didn't manufacture 10 million of these things right out the gate. And the numbers of the install base of PlayStation 5, that I'll talk about in a minute, kind of proves out that Sony was not expecting to sell 10 million units right out the gate. Also, look at when Sony launched this thing. This launched in February, which is after Christmas season, but before, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the United States, it's after Christmas season, but it's before tax return season. Most people start to get their tax returns around now or in April. or in May, and that's when they're looking to be big spenders. Launching this in February always felt like a soft launch for me, and I think Sony knew that they were going to miss the holiday season, but they were going to be before a tax return season, at least here in the States. I can't speak to Japan, I don't know about that, but at least here in the States, they knew this was going to be soft. Otherwise, they would have made more than 1.5 million units to sell, and that's they probably expected that to stretch out over the course of several months. As for the 5% adoption rate on PSVR1, there are over 100 million PlayStation 4 owners right now. 100 million. There are, last time I checked, when I looked at the article at the beginning of February, roughly 38 million PlayStation 5 owners right now. You're selling after a holiday season to a much smaller player base. Because of when you launch this, because of the stuff that's available, because it's not backwards compatible with PSVR1, but PSVR2 launched as a completely new console ecosystem with only 40-ish games available. In this day and age, that's almost unheard of. If you bought a Quest 2, you had access to the entire Quest 1 library. So Quest 2 launched, finger quote, launched with over 150 games available. They were basically launching a new console from scratch in one of the slowest buying periods, the slowest retail periods of the year. January, February, and then August, towards the end of summer, when vacation season is over, are the slowest retail periods of any year. Anyone who's ever worked in retail, any business sector, will always tell you that. New stuff doesn't come out in that time in that window because it just doesn't sell in that window because people don't have money. Clearly biased. And also, this is Bloomberg, and this is the danger of this. I was sent this article by 4 different people this morning. 3 of them own Quest headsets, and one of them just DM'd me on Twitter because they're a friend of mine who knows I'm into VR, but they themselves are not a VR gamer. They're not really a gamer, period. Bloomberg has a readership that is much bigger than people like me, than sites people like me read. They're not in this. The people who read Bloomberg and are going to read this article aren't people who are going to be in like Discords like mine or gamer tags or Clicksters or Rezzles or anyone else where you're going to disseminate and get the truth. They're not reading Upload VR. They're not reading GameSpot. They're not reading IGN. They're not reading Road to VR. They're not reading VR Scout. They're not reading where like more truthful stuff is going to come out. So if you're going to read, they're going to read this misinformation and just say, oh, this tanked. Articles like this are going to hurt the perception because more people in the general populace are going to see it than going to see things in like articles and websites that I read. And that's really frustrating, and it's totally disingenuous from a guy who has pretty much written a bunch of negative gaming articles before. He's written a bunch of articles about how like enthusiasm for Switch is soft, about how the new price of the next Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, that game's gonna be $70. So he basically said this is opening up Nintendo to be basically opening up Pandora's box, and now a bunch of new Nintendo games are gonna cost $70. He wrote a whole article that was negative about that. Some of the choice of words is very interesting. The use of metaverse over and over and over again. He used the word gadget. He used the word goggles. Basically, all these are like denigrating words as opposed to HMD or headset or something like that. He purposely chose those words to kind of just make it seem lesser than. It's agenda-based, clickbaity crap. And it's annoying that so many more people are going to read this and take this as the truth because it comes from a reputable source, which is Bloomberg. The other main point is when you if you ordered a PSVR2 and hey, call me Clay is in chat right now, bought one, the only place you could get it was Sony's website. You cannot get it on Amazon. You cannot get it in a brick and mortar store. You couldn't go to your Walmart or Target or GameStop to get it. You had to buy it on Sony's website, and it was invite only. You actually had to put in your email address and wait for an invitation to pre-order it to be able to get it. That later changed. About 3 weeks before the headset came out, you were able to go ahead and just straight ahead and order one, but it was always driven through Sony's website. For the launch window, Sony was protecting against scalpers. Anyone who remembers the whole GPU crisis that happened during the pandemic, when people were buying like all the 3000 series RTS GPUs and everything and selling them at completely outrageous prices on the net, Sony was guarding against that because there were people who have the capital to buy hundreds of thousands of these, wait until like the first production run sells out, and then they turn around and sell them on Amazon or on eBay for like double, triple the markup price. So you take all that in totality, everything I just said, the sales figures, the install base, when they started selling it, how they were selling it, there's no reason to have expected this to have sold over 1 million units in launch window. It just wasn't going to happen. And I think Sony knew that. And because of when they launched it, they were smart to roll it out the way that they did. This is not a failure. And I hate articles like this that do this. Thank you for indulging my rant.